How have you been, Steve? I haven't caught up with you in a while.
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
Family's good.
Good.
Lindsay got her back from New York. We were in New York for 4 months. She was finishing up her degree there.
Oh, okay.
So that's nice. And kids are doing well. We're headed off to hopefully to Israel in a couple of weeks.
Amazing.
So that would be nice.
Just the two of you?
Just the two of us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it's good.
Okay. Let's get started. Good morning, everybody. We'll start with Sif Daled. Okay. Oh, you were able to print the? Okay. Okay. All right. Harbei Dvarim, we're up to Sif Daled in Dinei Shmiras Gufa Nefesh, and how a person is supposed to preserve his health and the health of others. So yesterday we learned about, we finished up the laws of Ma'akeh, and then we talked about the prohibition of having ferocious animals, right? What's that guy that was on Netflix, the Tiger King, right? So that's a problem, you know? Yeah, unless, yeah, yeah. But even having a pit bull is going to be a problem if the animal is ferocious. And what we learned also is that even if the animal just barks ferociously and can frighten people, that's also halachically problematic because barking can traumatize people in which could translate even to a woman potentially miscarrying. So that's what's discussed in the Gemara. And the last thing that we saw from Rav Stern in the Imrei Yaakov was the traditional European position on having dogs. It said it's a moshav leitzim, it's going to cause you to waste a lot of time, and so forth and so on. You know, it's interesting, you know, this whole idea about that it causing you to waste time and having a pet. A lot of people smoke, or at least used to smoke in that same world. And I remember there's a story about the Chafetz Chaim who saw a guy smoking his pipe, but he had to go out to the Beis Medrash, and he pulled out the tobacco and pushed it into the pipe and pumped it in and pressed it, patted it down, and then had to light it. And the Chafetz Chaim said, you know, all that, can you imagine all of that Torah that he could have been learning during the time that he's smoking his pipe? The poskim don't, I mean, we'll see, maybe they will see something about smoking here, also Shmiras HaGufa HaNefesh, but there are a lot of things, a lot of activities, a lot of vices that people have. There are people who have vices in the frum world, you know, and if you're going to say that owning a pet is a problem of moshav leitzim, that it's going to cause you to, you know, to waste time and to be too overly recreational when you want to be more serious about life. So then, you know, what about all of the other things that, yeah, I'm saying, in other words, the point is that every community has its vices, is really what I want to say. And if you're going to take away this vice, there'll be a different vice, right? So whether it's drugs or whether it's food, right? You know, one of the things that they're railing against, you know, in one of the more Haredi communities is the latest thing is the charcuterie board. You know, that's become the biggest, you know what a charcuterie board is? So that's become like the latest standard. You know, it's that wooden board with all the dried meats and the
plate of salami.
Okay. In other words, right. In other words, the point is that there are vices and indulgences, and ultimately, you know, you can't shut down everything, right? So you have to choose your vices carefully, what you restrict and what you don't restrict. Okay, so let's take a look at Daled. Harbei Dvarim Asru Chachamim Mipnei Sheyesh Bahem Sakanas Nefashos. There are many things that our sages forbade because they present a potential health hazard. If a person were to take the attitude, what's it of your business? It's my body. I can do with it whatever I want. I'm not hurting anybody. oh, any makpid bekach, or I don't, it doesn't bother me to endanger myself like that. Chayev makas mardus. We tell that person, no, you don't have a right, you don't have personal autonomy over your body to do with it as you please. And we would take that person if he engages in hazardous activities, and we would actually take him to Beis Din in the good old days and give him lashes until he complies with our charge. The Elohim. And so here are some examples. Lo yaniach piv al tzinor hamekaleach mayim v'yishta. One of the things that you can't do, and remember, these are all medieval, okay? So you can't place your mouth over a pipe, let's say a gutter pipe, an eaves trough pipe, and just drink the water that's flowing off of the pipe. Shema yivla nima shel mayim, vihi aluka, because you may end up swallowing, or let's say any kind of pipe, because you may end up swallowing a water thread, literally what it means, which is some kind of water worm. You know, there may be some parasites in the water, is essentially what he's saying, and that parasite could become a tapeworm. So Joby, tell us, what are the potential? Yeah, that's not good, right? Get sick for a long time. And without proper medication, what could happen? Right. Yeah, okay. Similarly, you should not drink from rivers and swamps just with your mouth without filtering the water for the same reason. Below biyado echas, nor with one hand should you drink, because you'll hurriedly throw the water into your mouth without examining it, without checking it. But if it's during the daytime and you scoop up the water out of a river with both hands, you'll have time to examine the water, make sure there's no bugs or no worms in it, and then it would be okay for you to drink from it. Now, that's not going to stop you from getting tapeworm, you know, if there's parasites in the water, but at least you'll see if there's any large. Yeah, you're taking that extra step, exactly. Well, you know, you could always cook your water. You could boil the water. But here, you know, practically speaking, you're not going to stop people from drinking water from the river. But what the sages are basically saying is check the water before you drink it. Okay, uvalayla asur b'chol inyan, and it's always usur to scoop up water from a natural body of water at night, because you never know what you're drinking. And even if you filter the water with a cloth, you should not drink water at night from a river or any natural body of water. Misum sakanos shavriri, and that's because of a danger called shavriri. Now, what does that mean? Vihimaka sanverim. It is the fear of going blind from what you're drinking. Now, what does that mean? So the Rav Stern writes, it's a demonic force that could make you blind, that could be embedded in the water, a demonic force. But what I suspect is, well, there was a belief in demons in the times of the Gemara. There's a machlokes between the Rambam, who's a rationalist, and all of the other commentaries, whether shadim, demons, is a real thing. The Gemara, at face value, says shadim is a real thing. Demons is a real thing. The reason why you don't have to worry about shadim bisman hazeh, according to the Sfarim, is because in the times of Abaye banished all of the shadim to the wilderness. So they don't generally prowl around places where humans frequent. So that's why, but the Rambam is of the opinion that shadim never existed, and that it was all just superstition. But here, can you think of a parasite, Joby, that could cause blindness? We're not giving you a medical exam now, but just,
biases. Find it like in the Nile River, India, also in the Nile River. And I don't know if you've ever seen Israel and you see some of these Arabim that have like sort of clouded out eyes.
Yeah. They're like cataracts, looks like.
Well, they look like that.
Okay.
But there's definitely an association between certain parasites and visual disturbance.
I see. Okay.
So that may be what they're referring to back then.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. All right. Thank you. Okay. And even during the day, when you scoop up water from a river or a swamp, let's say, you should pour off a little bit of the water before you drink. He says, because the demons drink from the water of the river at night. And what you want to do is you want to remedy that water in some way so that the poison from the mouths of the shadim does not affect you. And this is what helps fix it. If you spill off a little bit of the water. Now, this is foreign to all of us, okay? This is strange, right? Because this was the medieval belief. But let me just point out, I actually have a two-volume set called Shmiras Hagufa Hanefesh. It was written a number of years ago by a big Talmud Chacham, and he collects all of these different things that the Gemara says about how to avoid a danger to yourself. Maybe I'll bring it in over the next couple of days. We'll take a look at it. Okay, but anyway, actually, I probably have it on the Yotzer Chachma. Anyways, but so this is how you heal yourself, or how you heal the water to remove the harmful effects of the shadim that may have drunk from the river water.
All the religions around the world where they go proper sanitation, a lot of people will use the river where they defecate and urinate, and they do so in the evening time. You can see kind of like fire coming out in the morning before people could see the
Right,
news doing it.
right.
And so much of the stuff that we pick up are gastrointestinal billions of bacteria that you get very, very sick from, that actually we have in our system, but you ingest it. So people, a lot of countries, they will have very, very disturbed waters.
Yeah.
And people get very, very sick. But it could be the depository, could be happening at night times a lot.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that. All right. It's what's the big river in India? That's the Ganges. Yeah.
All the ashes. Yeah. All the ashes are put in the Ganges.
Oh, you mean of people who are cremated? Yeah. Yeah. Come again? Okay. Uvalel Shabbos, Uvalel Revi'i b'Shabbos. Now, also on Friday nights and on the Tuesday nights, which is the night going into Wednesday, Lo Yishteh Mayim Ba'afela Afal Pishanishahu Mi Ba'od Yom V'Nistanenu B'Chli. You may not drink water in the dark, even if it was drawn during the day and it was filtered. Why? Mipnei Sakanas Ruach Ra. Because particularly on Friday nights and on Tuesday nights, there's some kind of demonic force that could rest upon the water. If you're very thirsty, throw something into the water, a pebble or whatever it is, and then that removes the harmful effect, and then you can drink it. Again, all medieval beliefs. This does not apply. This is not halacha l'maisa anymore. This was in the times of, when this is written in the 18th century, there was still this prevalent belief in all of these things. Ula olam, and by the way, disturbing as it may be, there are aspects of halacha that do change over time once we acquire new medical and scientific knowledge, and this would be one of those examples. Ula olam lo yishtamayim poshrim b'chli matachos. Mipnei shehem roim laguf. What you should certainly avoid doing is drinking lukewarm water in metal containers, because that could be harmful for you. Now, why would that potentially be harmful from a medical or scientific point of view? It could be because there was rust in those containers, and that's what would be harmful. What happens if you ingest rust, Joby? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Rabbi, it might be the containers were made out of lead, which is poisonous.
Oh, it could also be lead, says Barry. There could be lead. Yeah.
Silver, you're not supposed to.
Yeah. Okay. Ela imkain hishlich besocha eze davar shederach litno b'mashkin. Unless you first put in some kind of additive to the water that is normally added to beverages, kagon asavim o tavlim o ikrei b'samim v'chayotze b'hem, such as herbs or spices or roots and the like that people would put into warm water to make some kind of herbal tea. Yeah. Ve'im hirticho mutter b'chol inyan, and if you heat up the water to the point of boiling, so then it's always permitted to drink the water. Uveklicheres mutter b'chol inyan, and you're also allowed to drink water from an earthenware vessel because it doesn't have the same harmful effects as a metal or lead, like Barry was suggesting.
Well, not the mineral states, actually, the metals, the rust would stay in the body.
I guess, I don't know, but it'll certainly kill the parasites, right? We know from Mexico, right? They got to always boil. Was that true when you were living in Mexico? You always had to boil your water? Yeah. I always knew that growing up. If you go to Mexico, you got to boil the water. Right. Okay. So is that even true when you're, let's say, when you're cooking, you have to, because it's boiling on its own, right? Really?
They are very careful when they're cooking, when they're eating, when drinking. So they go to the washroom night to brush their teeth, and they use regular tap water, and that's when people get sick.
Wow.
So if you see in the hotels, they put the water is drinkable. In the mirror, they put a little sticker. Most of the hotels, and they tell you that you can drink water from the tap.
Because it's
So
filtered?
they're filtering that water.
Wow.
Most of the hotels. But if not, they give you a little water bottle there, and then you use that to wash your mouth.
Wow. Okay.
Listen, in Israel, where people think get sick from drinking water, North America,
That's right.
sick.
That's right.
You have terrible shilshol to get there out. That's just the normal bacteria that's no longer there, and it was filtered.
Wow.
Some people they get used to it.
Right, so.
Eventually you get used to it, right?
I drink it every time. 40
You are
years,
from Israel.
practice, no, but many people don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the opposite of a drink. They say that if you take a Coke, this is for many people drinking Coke, that if you put a coin in Coke, the coin will really change color. Isn't there something to
You
that?
pour it on your card. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way it-
Plumbers
So
use
what's
it.
that doing to your stomach?
Right.
Yeah. Although there's natural acid in your stomach, right? So, yeah.
And you know, something
They
interesting.
just want to Google, it's gonna work.
Something interesting is the flavor of the water too. The water has a specific flavor, depends where you're living. For example, the Corona beer in Mexico City, they tried to open a Corona factory in Spain a long time ago, and they put all the machinery in Spain, and they opened the Corona factory. They had to close it down because the water from Spain it was a different taste. So
Wow.
people make the Corona beer same thing, so they shut down the factory.
Well, why couldn't they just import the water from Mexico?
So yeah, that was the
Yeah, that's right.
It's cheaper to buy a Corona than buy a liter of water.
Is that so?
Yeah, drink is cheaper, Coca-Cola is cheaper than a water bottle.
Wow.
So that's why Mexico is number one in the world for drinking.
In beer consumption. Wow.
No, that's a bonus.
And that's interesting because in the times of the Gemara, wine was more of a beverage than water also. Because you see all of these issues with water, there was potentially danger. You'd have to filter the water. Wine, you could.
Nowadays in France, people drink more wine than water.
Yeah, right. That's right. Okay, let's take a look at the Imrei Yaakov. Asru Chachamim. The Chachamim forbade doing certain activities that are hazardous. And this is based on based on the pasuk that says you must be careful and protect your soul. And chayiv makas mardus, we would give such a person lashes if he was reckless with his own health. Yesh omrim dehemid rabbanan va'asmachinu akra kidleel. The way that some understand it is that these were rabbinic lashes, not that the person was genuinely liable for lashes. Umikol makom makin alehem kemoshar mitzvahs derabbanan. But he would get lashes just if he would, just as much as if he were violating a rabbinic law. Inami yesh lomer shehemid deoraisa umikol makom ein loken aleim min Torah. You could alternatively suggest that this person is violating the Torah by behaving dangerously, but he still wouldn't be deserving of malchus biblically. Like we see, there are many prohibitions in the Torah, such as what's called chatzi shir. If I eat, let's say, less than a kazayas, an olive size worth of something that's non-kosher, I don't get malchus for it. If I eat a half a kazayas of chazer, or if I eat, any other thing that's less than the requisite amount, I have violated the Torah, but I don't get malchus for it. And therefore, maybe it's of that genre that he gets rabbinic lashes for that reason, because the penalty that he incurs is not prescribed for that prohibition. Some disagree, and some say that if a person enters into a clear and present dangerous situation, let's say he goes into a dilapidated structure, or he tries to cross a dilapidated bridge where the bridge is clearly about to collapse, and he says, what the heck, I'll be a thrill seeker. They have these shows, right, where people take risks with their, he says, Yesh lomar deloken alzeh, mikra dehishamer lecha dehavilav. So some say that a person will get malchus even midioraisa. Aval bishar mili sha'asru chazal mishum sakana. But when it comes to other hazardous activities, where it's not clear and present danger, right? Kagon shelo yishta balayla min naharos. Let's say drinking at night from rivers. Or let's say drinking from water that was left exposed overnight, which we'll learn about later, where there's a possibility of endangerment. There for sure it's only a rabbinic lashes. Next, makas mardus. Geder makas mardus nechlaku bo harishonim. There's a machlokus as far as what makas mardus, what it is, how does it essentially differ from biblical makas? What's the difference? Yesh omrim yud gimel malkos. Some say that the biblical makos is 39 lashes, and this is only 13. And who's he quoting here? That's Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. So you get a third of what you would normally get, and that's what sort of distinguishes it, is the number of lashes. V'yesh omrim arboim malkos kishel Torah. Some disagree and say that it is not any different, and you give him the full amount. V'yesh omrim kefi ma sheyireh be'enei habeis, ma sheyireh be'enei habeitim. And some say that it's based on the discrimination of the Beis Din. That's what Rabbeinu Yonah says. So there's a three-way machlokas as what rabbinic lashes are. And one opinion is that you give him a third of what he would normally get. Another opinion is you just give him the full amount, and it's just, they have the discretion to do that. And then the third opinion is that they can decide. They can decide whether they want to give him one lash or all 39. It's really up to the discretion of the Beis Din. It's a very good question. The answer is because it's not prescribed by the Torah. So Tosfos apparently holds that the Chachamim have the discretion to administer Malchus whenever they want, even though the punishment is not prescribed by the Torah. Okay. Shema Yivla Nima, the fear is that by drinking water said at night or scooped up with one hand, you may swallow a Nima. So, and we said that's probably a worm. So Isa b'Shulchan Aruch Yored, and you shouldn't drink from a pipe, right? So the Shulchan Aruch says, Mashkim sheniskalu asrum chachamim, that any water that was left uncovered overnight, the rabbis forbade you from drinking that water. Because we're concerned that maybe overnight a snake may have come into your quarters, have drunk from that water and left some of its venom in the water. And therefore, by drinking the water that was left exposed overnight, you may actually be endangering yourself by drinking snake venom. But then the Shulchan Aruch concludes that nowadays that we do not have snakes that frequent our living quarters, it is permitted to drink water that was exposed overnight. Now, how often have you had a glass of water that you left out on your nightstand? Are you allowed to drink that in the morning? So the Shulchan Aruch says that as long as you're assured that there are no snakes around, you've never caught any snakes, then yeah, but that's covered. That's covered. So that's not going to pose a problem halachically. But if it's exposed, that's the question: are you allowed to drink it? Now, how many of you have learned at some point in your Judaism 101 career that if the water was left out overnight, you should not drink it? Yeah. Okay. We've all at some point heard that somewhere. So why is it that the Shulchan Aruch says it's okay? So he writes, then he quotes the Shalah. The Shalah Kasav the Shomer Nafsho Yerchak Mizeh. The Shalah writes that nonetheless, there is still a concern, even without snakes, there's a concern about evil spirits. And the Shalah, who was a 16th century mystic, says you should be concerned about that. Uvahanhagas Hagra Kasuv, or Shalah is 16th or 17th, I don't remember. Uvahanhagas Hagra Kasuv Gamkein Shahayanizar Bedavar. The Gra writes also he too would not drink such water. Uvalav Hachi Afilu Iloi Chashinin Legiloi Bikol Makom Tsarich Lizaher Lechasot HaTavshil Balayla Mishum Demitzuyim Sham Nemalim Uchidome V'yiplu L'socha. But in all cases, you should never leave food exposed out at night. Any cooked food, let's say that has any kind of liquid, you should not leave it exposed because insects can get into it. The ants will crawl into it and so forth. Alkain roy li zahir bazeh. And therefore, you always have to be careful to make sure that things are covered if you're going to be left out overnight. V'lav davka tavshil ela kol davar sheyeshlachu sheyisdabku bo yitushim unemalim. And it's not specifically cooked foods, but any food that could potentially be infested by bugs because it's sweet or it attracts insects or protein for other reasons, you should never leave that out overnight because then you could be potentially not only endangering yourself but also committing an isser deoraisa of eating a bug, right? But b'di'eved, if you did leave something out overnight, we cannot tell you that it's usher. You just have to check it, make sure. He says, now as far as wine that was exposed, left out overnight, we are machmir that wine has to be in pristine condition. We just learned in our Smichas Chaver program about yayin pagum, about tainted wine that cannot be used for Kiddush or Havdalah. So you have to be careful more about that than by other things, and that's true even Bisman Hazeh. But if it was only left out for a short time, and then you put it away afterwards, it was only for an hour or two, It wasn't all completely overnight, so then you don't have to worry about it. It's not such a big deal. Yeah.
On a camping trip, you're cooking outside and the bugs get into whatever you're cooking outside.
Yeah, that's an Isser D'Oraisa. Yeah. Well, I didn't say don't go camping, but if you know that bugs are getting into your food, you're not allowed to
Well,
eat.
you don't want them to, but I mean,
And I didn't say you wanted them to, but if you know for a fact that bugs are getting into your food, you have to pick out all the bugs before you can eat it. Well, actually, not. Well, first of all, if you're out camping, I don't know if you're going to have a blender with you, but the heter of turning on the blender and pureeing, that's a very good question. Do me a favor, let's talk about this tomorrow because it's a little bit more of a discussion. There is a common misconception about that, and I want to clear that up. So just remind me, okay, that we'll talk about that tomorrow. All right, have a good day, everybody.